Hey everybody, Al here, and I'm going to show you what it takes to take a 35mm film and turn it into a YouTube video. So stick around.
Okay, this is the point when we start processing the film. The film is being converted to DNG files, and we're going to make them into all these individual DNG files into a video. So by looking at one of the DNG files, you can see the properties of it. They're 17.6 megabytes a piece, and there's somewhere around 2,500 of them. Yeah, right around 2,500 frames total. Um, so there you go. So we'll close that off, and we're going to now load up DaVinci Resolve. Now DaVinci Resolve is loaded. We're going to now create a new project, and we're going to call it Pink Panther. Create. We're going to go into the uh, Finder down here, and this will allow us to bring in our video. Well, actually a bunch of pictures, but they'll come in as one piece. Scans Panther, and we'll just drag him down here, and we can actually go through it now and watch it, see the film in frame, all the frames added together. You'll notice that it's pretty steady, but we're actually going to work on steadying it a little bit more on the frames. They actually are pretty good this time. There's a little bit of bounce in it sometimes, you can see. Okay, so yeah. The first thing we're going to need to do is create a new timeline. To do that, we right-click on this and say create new timeline using selected clips, since we've only got the one. We'll tell it that it's the main edit and hit create. That creates our timeline over here. Double click on that, and it brings us into the main edit screen. On the main edit screen, we can then expand this out so we can see frames more a little bit further apart, and we can actually kind of scroll through. And you'll notice we have no sound, but we do have a soundtrack. This over here is our soundtrack. And that's by looking at it, probably said it on the film, but yeah, this is a stereo soundtrack because the left and the right are different from each other. So we need to know that when we get to a next step later on when we bring the sound out. Okay, the next step is to go into the Fusion page. This is Fusion. This is kind of like a mini programming language. It's the best way I can describe it for processing the film. We're going to start by adding a bunch of tools in. Well, we'll start with just three, just to get started here. We're going to click on this one over here first, and then the next one we're going to do is add a tool called the brightness control. And then we're going to open up the tools, expand the tools section over here, and find our way into the tracking and load up a planar tracker. Now we have a planar tracker selected. If we click on the planar tracker, you see some options over here. One of is track. We're going to change this one to hybrid point, and we're going to change this one to translation rotation. Okay, so what the point of this is going to be is we want to take these holes that are on the side of the film, there's on both sides of the film, and we want to use them to track the film to get it, make sure it's all as steady as it can be. So we're going to start by making a little design, and everybody seems to have their own. This is mine that I use for 35mm. I have a different one for 16mm, and a different one entirely for 8 or Super 8. But this is the one I use. And the whole thing is it has to be ending on itself. So now I've ended it on itself. And you're saying to yourself, well, that doesn't make any sense. I don't see what's going on here. Well, let's just take a look. We're going to go to the brightness control here, and we're going to darken it up. The goal is to get these holes so that they're extremely bright by comparison to the rest of everything here. and mostly around the area. We need them to stand out really far as being. So once they're standing out really well, we're going to then use our planar tracker, and we're going to fine tune these by using the control key and the scroll wheel on the mouse. You have to get used to doing how to do this. And we're going to move these around like this. And we're going to put them here. And it's actually better to go back to the beginning of the film to do this. So let's go back to the beginning and set it up for the point when it gets into the actual film. Like here would be good. So we go back on our planar tracker. Yeah, it's a pretty good scan. It looks like it's pretty steady. Sometimes they're not this steady. So that's good. I'm going to adjust this like this. Kind of scroll over here. That's the thing with this, it'll sometimes generate additional points, and you don't really want the extra points, but that won't hurt anything. Scroll up to the top. Okay. So what we've done essentially is we've created this little pattern across the whole thing. Shows it better on the screen. And we've created a nice little pattern here. And what we're going to do now with our settings set to hybrid point area and translation, we're going to now change that to set the tracking to the current frame, which is 92. And we're going to track forward. So we're going to take it from this point and track those holes going to the end. And you can see that it's put this pattern around the holes, and it's using that information to determine where the holes are at. And we're going to let that run. That's going to take 9 minutes to run. Okay, so we're coming up in the end of the film going through the planar tracker. And it's got a color chart at the end of it. That'd be great to use for color adjustments. Although this film looks pretty nice. It's a brand new trailer, so it's never been run before. And we're hitting the end. Last couple frames. Okay, so now we've completed that part of it. This brightness control, which is giving us all this over here, is it's not helping us any now because it's kind of in the way. So we're going to take that one out. I always keep it in case I need to redo a planar tracker, but 9 times out of 10 you don't. So the first thing we're going to do is add a few more tools to this. I'm going to put a transform in here. This is going to be used for in case the picture is a little crooked. I'm going to adjust the picture with that. And then we're going to add in a crop. And this is going to be cropping for the picture. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to create a new branch over here. And we're going to create another crop. We're going to do a resize, a brightness control, and we're going to add a saver. Now I'll explain all these things as we get through them, go to them. But you pull those off this effects menu over here. And I used to use the one for the brightness here. There's another one of those under color, I think, someplace. But I never really went out to that. So there's our cropping options, transform, planar tracker. Okay, so we're going to take this in order. The first thing is we're going to turn this planar tracker into a steady utility. Just click on steady, and now this is steadied the picture. So now the picture on the right side should be more steady than the one on the left. And the way you tell that is that, oh, actually we have to put that in the right place. Yeah, it's in the media out. So this one, this little dot here determines which screen you're looking at. So the left one's on the source, and this one's on the right. We're going to actually use this one over here on the saver from now on, and we'll be using that to get the soundtrack figured out. Let's start with this picture. We're going to crop it. Now you might notice that the picture is really good, but it looks like it's all squished, and that's because they fit 16 by 9 film into a 4 by 3 box. So basically, yeah, it looks terrible. Looks like it's wrong, and that's because it really is. Now what I have to do is find a nice scene with a lot of good brightness and color, and like this one's a good one for it. It has nice defined borders, those black lines, and I can see there's a little, looks like there's a little bit of twist to it, so it needs to be adjusted just a little bit from what the scanner scanned. So let's just start by cropping off this shot. Start by moving the X left and right, and we might need more than it has. So we'll just give it 1500. That's too much, which is fine. We can always move it back. And it looks like there's a, I don't know if the gray line is part of that. Let's look at that in more detail. I'm trying to get this as close to the edge without going over. Now this would have been cropped a lot more in the theater. It would actually crop it further. And we'll do the Y, which is the up and down. And that little thing I talked about, how it was a little crooked, we'll see that in more detail in the next step. X size. And then this size. Now I might need to scroll it back a little bit, yep, just to see. Now, here's where we get to the part about the pixel aspect. This is where we change this at, and we want to change the pixel aspect for this to, we can put it in here and just backspace over it, and hit 2.0. And now the picture is perfect. Now we can see the whole picture now, and everything looks like it's normal. Now, a lot of times you still have to tweak it a little bit. And it looks like I'm not adjusted on the X as size as like much as I need to be. Okay. Oh, it was, yeah, it looks pretty good. Okay. X and Y sizes seem to be good. Our aspect ratio has been changed, so it looks nice and clean. And there you go. There's your video. And we can hit play and get a feel for it. It may not be all that fast because the pixels are, the pictures are very large. And so there we go. We got that. Now let's work on this side. This is where we'll be able to get our transform, get our crookedness solved. So when you crop this one out, you're actually cropping it totally different than the other ones. I like to crop it to about here, and then I like to get this as even as I can, top and bottom, and then just bring the size out. It's actually not as bad as I thought. Actually, I might not have to touch it. Let's see if this adds anything or not. I think that's right. It's still set to 0, so I'm not going to do that. That's how you would do it, though. You can look at this picture and get it exactly straightened that way. So what we're going to do is, since we don't need it, we're going to get rid of it. All you gotta do is hit delete on it, and away it goes. So now we're not using that tool, which is great.